beer hunters and wadge bankers, welcome to another episode of the Beer Huntress. I hope you're all exceptionally well. The more astute amongst you may have noticed that I haven't got the wheel of styles in front of me this evening, and there's a specific reason for that. I've decided I wanted to do a couple of comparison videos where I'm going to be reviewing two beers, mostly from the same brewer with a different vintage variation or from a different variation of the style that they've produced. So today I'm going to be reviewing Pannepot. So this is the Struise brewery and these are their Pannepot vintages. We have their 2018 and we've not only got their Reserve, we've got their Grand Reserve as well. Now, I was gifted these beers by a gentleman called Charlie. Thank you very much, Charlie. And I was hoping to be able to review these for you in order to be able to show you the distinction between the two different variations. Now, the Reserve is actually bourbon barrel aged, whereas the Grand Reserve is cognac barrel aged. Now, we're going to go into a little bit more depth in these very shortly, but before we do that, shall we crack them open and take a look at them? There we have it. We've got the two of them poured. We've got the Pannepot Reserve, which is the 2018 bourbon barrel aged version, and we've got the Pannepot Grand Reserve Old Fisherman's Ale, which is the 2018 cognac barrel aged version. This one's been barrel aged for 2 years. I don't have an actual amount of time that this one's been aged for, but we'll go a little bit further into the aging of these specific beers in a short while. I'm going to put these up against each other, seeing as they've got the same date and the same vintage, and we're going to see what the difference is. Pannepot is a very well known, however rare, vintage variety of beers from a brewery called Struise. So the Struise Brouwers, and they were founded in 2008. It was a group of men who came together, and they're based in Oostvaardersplaats. It was started by a gentleman called Carlo Gruitaert, who swapped his career from being involved very much in wine to starting out a microbrewery in West Hoek area. And the reason he did this is because he got very close to a gentleman called Urbain Couture, who was a fantastic brewer and really wanted to push forward the boundaries of the Belgian style. One of the reasons he did this is because he felt like the wine industry had very certain restrictions. So you'd normally get wines between 11 to 13, possibly heading up towards the 16% ABVs, whereas with beers you could go anything from kind of 12% plus. Now I mean seriously plus. There are beers out there that are 40% and above, and he thought it was a much wider variety of flavours as well as a bigger opportunity to play around with the alcohol content. De Struise loosely translates as the sturdy brewers, and I think that this absolutely corresponds with the kind of beers that these guys make, especially when it comes to the Pannepot range. Their Imperial Black Stout, which is called Black Albert, is considered to be one of the best beers in the world, only slightly beaten by the barrel-aged version, which is called The Truth Will Set You Free. However, you can see by their Pannepot range that they're definitely dedicated to this idea of taking the Imperial Stout onto a new level, barrel-aging it and producing a complexity of different varieties based upon different vintages that are available to you. So before I sink my teeth into both of these, I'm just going to tell you where the term Pannepot comes from. So in the 1990s, the village of De Panne was close to the French border, was famous for two things. The first was the Pannepots, or which was the fishing boats that were available at the time and that were being used by the locals in order to be able to bring home the bounty to their families. And the other one was the dark ale that was being enjoyed by all these local fishermen. So, before we move a little bit further on into the history of how this beer is made, let's have a little bit of a taste of both of them. So the Pannepot Reserve is going to be first. This is aged in bourbon barrels. I haven't tried this before I actually done the video, and I'm so glad that I haven't. Oh. Smells like a really dark, intense Belgian strong ale. You're getting all those kind of really thick, intense, juicy dates, really aged, kind of syrupy kind of raisins and that kind of thing going on there. Everything's caramelized. Yeah. Oh gosh. And got that bourbon hit straight away on the back of the palate, really beautifully. Leads into this upper level of my palate, getting that really intense fruit flavour. Can't even describe what it is at the moment. I'm definitely getting a kind of plummy, almost the skins of the plum, tannin. A little bit kind of winey kind of thing going on there. That booze is wonderful. Wow. If that's the Reserve, then gosh knows what Grand Reserve is going to taste like. I have had Pannepot before, but I've not had this particular version, and it was a couple of years ago since I've had Pannepot. Interesting, right? The nose on that second one is much more subtle. A hint of some strawberry, blackberry kind of flavour going on there. There's definitely a berry thing. That's got a lot more dates and raisins going on. But I can get more yeast kind of flavours coming. Wow. The cognac in that tastes like a brandy. I'm so pleased that I chose to maintain the temperature level on these. Really pleased that I did, because I don't personally believe that you should have an Imperial Stout or any beer of a dark strong ale or anything like that below say, cool room temperature. I wouldn't want anything below, say, like 12 degrees or anything like that, and I certainly wouldn't want anything a lot higher, but I've managed to maintain a temperature on that, and I'm really pleased that I have, because the cognac flavours, brandy to me always should be served at room temperature. Should always have that kind of room temperature warm. It's worked perfectly for that. It's worked absolutely brilliantly for that. And I can taste it warming up my palate as it comes through. The fruit's a lot more subtle, the malt's a lot heavier. It's interesting, very interesting comparison. Okay, let's have a look at how these started off. So Struise are considered to be one of the most exciting brewers in the Belgian area, and the reason that this is because they're pushing the boundaries all the time with this particular style of beer. Their flagship beer, as we've talked about, is the Pannepot, and this has been construed because of a lifetime of brewing really safe beers, and it was their first venture into the world of the extremities and the extreme styles. The beer is called the Old Fisherman's Ale, and it's a tribute to the fishermen's trawlers that were risking life and limb in order to be able to feed their families. It sits somewhere in between a Belgian strong ale and a stout, and I would definitely agree with that on tasting both of them. Certainly a barrel-aged stout nonetheless. Really luscious dark brown with quite a cream tan head. Obviously we've got no head on either of these now due to the viscosity of both of the beers, but when we first poured we could see a little bit of head on both of them. It's quite complex in terms of its toasty flavours. We've got some deep caramel kind of sweetness going on. I'd say that's definitely relevant for both of them. However, I think that I'm losing a bit of the sweetness in this one because of the barrel aging. The Pannepot Reserva was an idea that was brought in by the brew colleague who was called Carlo, and he wanted to be able to age Pannepot in genuine French oak barrels. They brewed 90 hectolitres of it at the end of 2005, which they then aged on oak for more than 14 months. They took 13 hectolitres of it in early 2007, and that became the Reserva. And then they continued that on until late 2007, and then they bottled from there, calling it their Grand Reserva. So you have a 14-month version around about for the Reserva, and you have an 18 month to 2 year, should I say, version in order for you to have the Grand Reserva. Both of them have got this really, really intense, sweet, doughy kind of cakey kind of smell to them. Absolutely beautiful. The first one, the Reserva, definitely holds that weight a little bit more in terms of that nose. It's got so much more in terms of that caramel, that plum, that grape, that raisin kind of thing going on. It just smells amazing. It smells absolutely beautiful. Candied sugar, everything's been soaked, coated, held in sugar for such a long, long time. When it comes to the smell of the Grand Reserva, I don't get that anywhere near as much. It's much subtler. The cognac, the barrel aging's coming through much more intensely. It feels as though the malt profile's kind of died off a little bit. I don't want to say died, I just want to say hidden, but in my head I'm saying died. It's just not quite as intense malt profile on the nose. Yeah, it's slightly disappointing more in the smell for the more prominent version, should I say. You know, a Grand Reserva, you expect it to be the more intense version of it. That is beautiful. Yeasty, doughy, bready, slightly boozy, all that raisins, that figs, that cloves, that juicy dates, that intense syrupy kind of fruited kind of flavour to it, definitely prominent in that. I've seen that done quite a lot with Belgian strong ales, so yeah, that tends me towards a kind of Belgian strong ale. The bourbon came across quite prominently at first. Now I've had a couple of sips. It's kind of subtly backbenched itself. It's not there quite as prominently. In terms of barrel aging, the malts in this and the kind of fruit profile in this is obviously masking that a little bit more. I definitely would say that that's a beer rather than that, which is a brandy. You know, it's definitely interesting. Even just looking at them at the moment, I can see that there's an awful lot of similarity in the way that they look. There's an awful lot of similarity in the colours. But this is holding its cognac weight an awful lot more than that's holding its bourbon barrel weight. But that's holding its beer weight an awful lot more than that's holding its beer weight. I would say, based on the way that I'm consuming this one, comparatively to how I'm consuming this one, so this is the Reserve, which is the more beer orientated one, versus the more cognac orientated one. I would say I'm probably more sided towards this side of it. I think I'm more wanting my beer to taste like beer, if you know what I mean, rather than wanting my beer to taste like cognac. I do love a good brandy. Do like it at the right temperature. I do think it's been properly done that way, but I'm kind of settling a little bit more towards the original. More than I am to the Grand Reserve. I don't know. Both beautiful beers. Really are. The barrel aging on the Grand Reserve is just amazing. The cognac, the brandy aspect comes through beautiful. But the Reserve holds the traditional Belgian dark ale, dark strong ale kind of concept a lot better than it does. It's a difficult one. It really is. I'm not too sure. Well, you know what I'm going to have to do? I'm going to have to drink them both and then let you know in the future. Well guys, if you've been lucky enough to get hold of some of the Pannepots, then please let me know which vintages or which variations you managed to get hold of. Let me know in the comments what you thought of them. As always, I hope you enjoyed watching this video as much as I enjoyed drinking these beers. This is a new choice for us to do comparison videos, so if you enjoyed it, please let us know if you want to see it again. We'd love to have your recommendations of what beers to compare. Please pick, similar breweries or similar styles. That would always be good for us. Keep wedge banking, and I'm going to enjoy the rest of this beer. And this one as well. Cheers. No. If you enjoyed this video guys, then please like, subscribe and share it with your friends. Hit that notifications button to get alerts when our new video is out. We're also on Facebook, Twitter and on Instagram, so check out the links in the description and follow us on there as well. If there's anything you'd like to see us review, please pop it in the comments and we'll pop it in the pump for later. Keep wedge banking and I shall see you all next time for another episode of The Beer Huntress.